Hello, can everyone hear me on this? That's fine. Nice, cool. Thanks. All right, I'll go live on Instagram in a second. All right, cool. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our second Medmentor weekly session. So, it's me again, Tafsir. I'll just wait a minute or two so that everyone can join in. We'll go live in about a minute. Does anyone want to say wave, say hello? Okay, cool. Live, that's fine. Hey everyone, welcome to our Q&A session at Medmentor. Cool. Hey everyone, we'll be starting in about a minute. Just wait for people to start joining. Hopefully there's a few of you guys. Hey Hannah. Nice, thank you guys for joining. So it's 6 o'clock. I'll start in probably a second. Hello, Amna. Thanks for saying hello. Where are the wait? That's nice. Cool. Good. All right. So we've already got our first question in. That's nice. Thank you very much. That was Dr. Atelophobia. What does atelophobia mean? Someone Google search and let me know. All right, cool. I'll start. Hi there, everyone. My name is Tafsir. I'm a final year medical student at UCL. I'm part of Medmentor as your weekly clinic host. And so welcome to our second ever Medmentor weekly clinics. Today is a general Q&A session about medical applications, as is always. Nothing in specific. So whatever you have in terms of questions, please just drop them on the comment section or the question cards, and I'll have a look. We're also live, so we're on Insta Live here, but we're also on Twitter Live. We're live on our website, and we're also live on YouTube as well. So feel free to use all the other platforms. And please, if this is useful to you, and I'll try my best to be as useful as possible when answering your questions, please do leave some feedback in the comments and share with your friends, people that you know applying for medical school, etc. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we already have our first question in. Thank you very much, Dr. Atelophobia. So if anyone else could reply in the comments, what does atelophobia mean? Because I don't know. Is that made up? So fine. The first question is, what makes a competitive personal statement? That's a very good question. So I'm presuming you're not in year 13, but in a few years before that. So a competitive personal statement, it consists of two main things. It consists of good experiences that you've gained in terms of the medical world, whether that be work experience, whether that be volunteering, whether that be extracurricular activities, whether that be reading, whether that be doing research, whether that be being just curious and showing that you're curious about medicine in general. And the second part of that is actually articulating that information. And when you're articulating it, as amazing as it is to talk about a cardiothoracic surgery, it's more important to talk about your reflections from that surgery. So not just that you saw it, but what did you kind of see? And at the same time, what did you take from that? What insight did you gain that other people wouldn't have gained if they weren't in that room at the same time as you? So those are the two main components, basically reflections and experiences. So your content and how you write that up. Other things that I would say are really good for a personal statement is to actually have almost like a running narrative or like a theme for every paragraph that you do. Now, that might be new to some people, and it's very different to normal personal statements that you do compared to like medical ones. I'd say that one of the best personal statements is one that where you show interest in something, not for the sake of showing interest. So an example from my side was that I was really interested in cancer, which is oncology, back in year 12. So I went to a summer school for that. I read some books on that. I read some articles on it. I debated it in my medical school like society that we made. And I did a work experience where I saw patients who had cancer. And then I went to a hospice and saw patients who had cancer. So you can almost tell there that there's a theme going through oncology, but there's all different aspects from the research side to the academic side to the clinical side to me being curious about it. And where did that all start off? I was in a biology class, and I thought that it was really interesting that an ever dividing bunch of cells could cause such harm to a patient and ultimately lead to death. So that's my answer to what makes a great personal statement and an example from my side. Any questions on that, please do. Any follow-up questions, please do let me know. All right. So atelophobia is the fear of imperfections. That's very interesting. That's a nice little fear of not being good enough. Oh God, that's a bit deep. But all right, that's fine. That's good. Well done, guys. Next question. Do I have the question in the comments? Let me have a look. No. All right. You feel free to drop questions on the comments as well as the question cards. So Maish, how to balance prepping for interviews, A levels, revising for year 12 and year 13 content, and just life in general? Smiley, not smiley face, crying, laughing face, but also all right, okay, good, fine. So that's a very good question. How do you do that? So okay, so guys, the question was, how do you balance prepping for interviews, A levels, revising for year 12 and year 13 content, and just life in general? Before I answer that question fully, does anyone have any answers to that, like that, or like hints or tips that you want to drop in the comments? Feel free to do so as I kind of do it myself. So I'm presuming you're in year 13. Let me double check. Sorry, so much. How to balance prepping for interviews, A levels, revising year 12 and year 13, and just life in general. Fine. Okay. So yeah. So you're in interview, so in year 13. So I think year 13, especially the whole of year 13 is a really pivotal time in your life, as well as academic life, as well as application processes and exams. So I'd say take everything one step at a time, but also have like a long-term plan or goal that you're looking at. So, for example, you know that A levels are right at the end of the year, right? But you can't cram for A levels just before the exam because that won't help anyone, and you'll probably suffer for that, and your grades will suffer. And if you're aiming for A's and A stars, which you have to in medical school, you need to kind of stay on top of your schoolwork, plus do some extra work that you need to do and cover stuff that you need to cover in the year before as well. The best way to do that is to do the classic revision plans, revision sessions. I like to scope a subject before I start any work on it. So make sure you know how much content you need to cover and by when. Put kind of rough deadlines of when you want to finish these notes by, when you want to cover this topic by, and try and repeat it. And that's through active recall. Now, I know there's loads of stuff out there right now. Back when I didn't have any iPads or like anything like that, we were just doing like handwritten notes. But now there's stuff like Anki decks and question cards, and everyone was using revision cards anyway. I'd say utilize those resources. And I'm emphasizing a lot here about revising for A levels, because that's a big hurdle to get over to try and get those A's and A stars to get into medical school. When it comes to, and that applies to the year 12 content as well, it's good to keep that refresher, even if you know it. You can't be revisiting a topic 11, 12, I think like sometimes 16, 18 months after you first covered it. You don't want to be doing that. So yeah, when it comes to interviews, I think that's as they come, you revise for it, or like you do work for it. I think that would be more like incremental in terms of mock interviews and some preparation as you go along. So A levels, make sure you're working throughout the year consistently, and that is key for everything here to balance everything in year 13 right now. And interviews, again, consistently spend a couple of hours here or there every week, or a mock interview or something, or practice in general. And then close to the time, like close to the interviews, close to the exams, concentrate that work and make that like 100% almost, so that you're prioritizing it. So priorities as well there. I hope that helps at all, MX-ish. Hope that helps. In terms of life in general, you got to prioritize some sort of like, I don't know, hobby, movement, sport, like whatever you need to do to get yourself out of the bubble of constantly working. You need to have that, because without the refresh, you can't really focus all the time at 100%, and sometimes it becomes unproductive. So I'd rather, for example, take one day off rather than struggle my way through 4 or 5 days doing half the work I'd normally do. I hope that helps. If it has, please do comment below if that has helped you at all. If not, feel free to follow up with any other questions. Okay, Dr. Atalophobia, thank you for your other question. So, should you include work experiences that is not medicine based? Yes, you should, to an extent. I'd say include work experiences that are not medicine based, but if they're not medicine based, make sure you can link it to a key skill that you think a doctor or a medical student should have, or something in general related to medicine, to an extent, or like a characteristic. So for example, I had a work experience with a telecommunications engineer in year 9, and I have no idea what was going on. And it was a really good work experience to find out that I don't want to do engineering. But I talked about it in my medical school interview, because they remember, like when they asked me like why didn't I do something mathsy or banking, I told them that's the reason why. Like I did work experience, then I thought I didn't like it, so I didn't include it in my personal statement, but I did talk about it. I did work experience at opticians, a pharmacy, like those are things that you can put in as well. In terms of anything else far-fetched, I don't know. Like for example, I was part of the Air Cadets, which is a very like minutiae extracurricular activity, but it was in my extracurricular section in my personal statement, and I really enjoyed it, and I learned loads from it, like determination, self-discipline, hardworking, practical elements, all of that stuff. And they all are buzzwords for personal statement, so that's why I included it. And Air Cadets got nothing to do with medicine, like flying airplanes and doing drills and sergeant stuff. It doesn't make any difference. So okay, cool. Hope that's helped. Nice. The questions are coming in. Amna, thank you for your question. I'm going to address that in just a second. Feel free to carry on dropping questions, guys, in the comment sections. Has anyone else mentioned anything? No, that sounds fine. Cool. No worries, MX-ish, Mish. No worries. If you have more questions, feel free to drop them below. All right, let me just check the other stream. If we have any questions on YouTube, on Twitter, on Medmentor Live. No, that's fine. Brilliant. So I'm going to address Amna's question. Thank you for your question, Amna. So do you need to do an extracurricular club, example, sports for medicine? So I wouldn't say you need to do a club. Like you don't need to do something competitively. You don't need to do something that's like rigid and that you have to show like a certificate that you took part and participated, unless it's like a big achievement or something like that. I say if you have hobbies and do things outside of your studies and medicine, whether that be, for example, listen to podcasts. I don't know, that's a very simple thing. You might just watch Netflix all the time, but I think it's not common for people to put like, oh, I watch Netflix. But I remember seeing in a friend's personal statement, they were talking about I'm really into crime, like criminology or like crime books, investigative stuff, and I read a lot of like books on it. I watch some movies on it. That's like a theme. They really are interested in it, and they would be happy to talk about an interview. Other things. So yeah, I had a mentee who didn't have that many extracurricular activities. Bear in mind, my extracurricular activity was jogging and swimming. Like that's not much, and I think I put tennis, but like I used to go like to the park once a month if the weather was good, which it never is in London. So you can tell like you don't have to be really good at whatever you do. You just have to have that out. And it's quite interesting because now I do swim. I do now cycle, for example, like because I need that de-stressor. So that's what they're looking for in extracurricular activity. My whoever asked that question, which was Amna, yeah. Amna, has that helped in has my answer helped at all? I hope it has. Cool. What do you need to do an extracurricular activity? Exactly. So yeah, so overall, Amna, I'm gonna summarize it. Yes, you do need to do some sort of extracurricular activity outside of your studies to show you're interesting and to show that you can deal with a stressful situation or like life that is medical school in general and being a doctor, because you need that out. And if you don't have that out, then it's not they're going to be worried for you. And actually, in few medical school interviews that I took, at UCL, we did look for people who are resilient, and the way to show that someone is resilient is that they can cope with situations by taking themselves out of the area and then coming back refreshed and better. Hope that helps. It's more of like giving you a framework of what extracurricular actually means, because I think it is very wishy-washy. When I was in year 12 and 13, I really didn't understand what they were getting at, but now it makes a lot of sense seeing as I've been on the other side of the table in interviews. Okay, cool. So the other question that I got from Dr. Atilophobia, what supercurricular, extracurricular and things are extracurricular and things are liked, and should you mention debate club? Basically, mention as many extracurricular stuff as you like, as you have space for. They're not prioritized over work experiences. Extracurriculars are just very important to show that you have a personality and you do other things outside of studying. As I said, don't want to sound like a broken record, sorry. And so what are the examples? All right. So for example, so I'll give you the extracurricular stuff I did. So yeah, I was part of the school debating club. Basically, we just made a debating club. We had like a medic club, which I didn't talk about in my personal statement, but I did an interview. It was just a group of us meeting up at lunchtime that had applied to medical school, discussing articles. As you can tell, these aren't like achievements or anything. I did air cadets just because that's something that I thought would be good. Like we had to do the Duke of Edinburgh in the day. Loads of people talk about NCS, like still talk about NCS. It just depends what the skills you gain from that and how they're relevant to medicine and like university is. Obviously sports, anything that you do in general, music, reading, books that things you're interested in, like maybe you like knitting, maybe, I don't know, like things like I've seen that on personal statements. That's perfectly fine. If you've got like a specific interest in like video games, maybe you can mention that, because these are things that interviewers would like to ask you about, because it's more about you and rather about like medicine stuff. So it's quite nice for them to ask that. All right, I'm glad I helped there. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them. What are you guys? All right, I have a question for you guys. Should you include work experience that is not medicine based? That's fine. What makes a good person compared to personal statement? That's fine. Dr. Atilophobia, keep coming with your questions. They're really good. Good stuff. Let me just double check the other. All right, so I have a question for you guys. What are you guys most worried about in the application process to medical school? If you could name one thing that you're most worried about, and drop them below, and maybe we can discuss why you're worried about them. So maybe even drop a reason if you have one for being worried about them, and let's see if I can help in settling your anxieties or telling you, yeah, you're right to worry about it. So if you do have any, drop them below. Okay, and as you're dropping your medical school worries below, I'm just going to answer a question from someone on YouTube Live. So, Linda Lee, thank you for your question. You asked a couple of minutes ago. My medical school interview is in 10 days, and I feel very underprepared. Any advice? Okay, Linda Lee, this is a very good question because I was in your exact position this time 6-7 years ago when I applied. So I had an interview at Cardiff, and I had barely done any interview practice apart from maybe one mock interview that was MMI at the time. Cardiff was panel. What I did though is read this ISC medical book called Interview Medical. Basically, it's the ISC medical interviews book. Have a read through that, skim through all the points, and that is your reading, your revision for the days up to the interview. And I'd say you should also make sure you know everything in your personal statement inside out, which you kind of should already, but like you can also preempt some questions. If it's an MMI type interview, as I said, go through that book that I mentioned, the ISC medical book, and there's MMI type questions there, and just brainstorm answers to questions that are common questions that could come up, because they're not going to ask you very niche questions. You're going to be preparing for general questions. And by the way, it's really good that you got an interview in 10 days time. Like, be positive about it, because that means they really like you, because they want you to have the interview like as soon as possible. That means that they want you to be in medical school. Like, you're kind of the first batch of applicants. So look forward to it, Linda. They really like you. That's why they've asked you to interview. And don't be nervous, because you're amazing, and that's why you got your interview in the first place. So be confident. Read that textbook that I'm talking about, draft answers to common interview questions, and I'd say learn your personal statement and know about it inside out, so that you can anticipate questions off that. And make sure you have in your head like a fair few reflections that you took from your work experiences, things that you did, extracurriculars, things like that. Yeah. And last thing that I'd say is try and find someone in the years above, through, I don't know, there's different channels, whether that be through a school, through social media, through a Medmentor, like through here. Like, try find people that have done interviews at that same place, and maybe just have a conversation with them, and take on any advice. That was really useful to me, because I knew someone in the year above, no, 2 years above, that had an interview at UCL, and they told me about how the interview was. And their one was really scary, so I prepared for the worst, but my one turned out to be quite nice compared to it. So definitely try and get in touch with someone in years above. Can I just ask Linda, where's your interview at? And I'm glad. Thank you very much for your reply. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Thank you. No worries at all. Good luck with the interview. And yeah, please let me know where your interview was at. Okay, so fine. Amna's questions been answered. There's more questions. Woo! Dr. Atalophobia, you keep going with the questions. I like it. That's brilliant. Hopefully I'm helping out. And Linda said Dundee University. Well, unfortunately, I don't know anyone at Dundee, I think. But if we do, we'll get back to you. Maybe drop Medmentor a message, and we'll get back to you. Do you know, if you know anyone in years above that I'd interviewed at Dundee, please do get in touch with them. Cool. Dr. Atalophobia, your next question. Is there something you should not say in an interview or your personal statement? What do you guys think? Is there anything that... Give me a suggestion of what you shouldn't say in a personal statement or an interview. Please, not completely wild, but like, you know, just like in general. So in a personal statement or interview, you should never say anything that you have not done. You should never lie. That is the first thing that everyone says that you should never do in your personal statement or interview. If you read like half of a book, but you say you've read the entire book, well, you haven't read the entire book. And if they ask you about the end part, well, you're going to be stuffed. So don't lie. And don't list, yes, good, medic who says not no to failure. Like, that's a nice name. Cool. List your experience. Don't list your experiences. And make sure you have self-reflection. Those are two important things. So do not list. Don't say, oh, I did work experience in the cardiology department, in GP practice and research lab, and from those I found out how life in medicine is really lovely. Like, nothing like that. You want to talk about, hi, I did work experience in a cardiology department and I learned this from seeing this. And then later on you talk about your GP practice and how that links. You should never undermine other healthcare professionals. That's a very, very good point. Another aspiring medic. And it's quite interesting. Some interviewers will put you in a position on purpose to be like, oh, so like, why did you not want to be a nurse? Or like, why did you not shadow the nurse? Or what did you think of the nurse's job? Like, almost, and then antagonizing you to find out like, oh, like, what do they actually think about other professionals? What do they think about doctors? And it's really interesting to see answers like that. And I've asked that type of question in a medical school interview before as well. And it's like, it's not about saying that another professional isn't good at what they do. You just say the positives of what they've done, but also say the positives of maybe like if they're comparing it to a doctor, the more positives maybe that there are being a doctor that you think that you're not going to see in it or you haven't seen or whatever of the sort. So yes, never undermine healthcare professionals, and take that forward to when you're a doctor and a medical student as well, because I'm telling you, then no one's better than you. Fine. Any other questions, guys, about the medical school interview process? You should say you really appreciate that nurses are the foundation of the NHS, and they are. Yes, that is a very good point. You're a really good medic who says no to failure. Keep it up. All right. More questions coming in. This is what we like to see, guys. Okay, I know this is a time for loads of year 13s. They're gonna have interviews coming up. For loads of year 12s, they're thinking about work experience, how to apply to it, how to prepare for, how to write up personal statements, thinking about it later on down the line, extracurriculars to be done, or like A levels in general. Like, feel free to ask about any of those topics. Feel free to ask about how university and medical school life is like as well. So I'm from UCL, but I have friends like in all other medical schools, because after 6 years of medical school, you realize there's not many of you that stay in uni for 5-6 years, so you get to know quite a few of them. So feel free to ask me about other universities that you're thinking about as well, and my time at UCL as well, and things outside of medicine as well. All right, so the next question I've got in is another aspiring medic. I ramble too much when answering interview questions. Is the solution mainly just to practice? I ramble all the time. So, no. So, the solution, okay. So, it's very interesting that you say ramble. So, sometimes, so last session we had, we were talking about why people get rejected from interviews. And so I'm on the UCL Med School interview panel, and have been for the last 2 years. And one of the reasons why the people that do get rejected are rejected is because they learn answers and they memorize not just the points of the answers, but like almost phrases. And you can tell that when people answer, because it's not natural, it sounds a bit robotic, and they sometimes answer the wrong parts to the question that we're asking. So it's a very fine line between not knowing anything to answer for an interview question, waffling too much in an interview question, and then memorizing interview question answers. So yes, take a deep breath. I'm going to take a deep breath so I don't ramble, and clear your head before you answer a question. And I've really liked interviewees that have actually just thought, hold on a second, let me take a check on that question, and then let's see what's going on here. And then they answer it to their best, and they articulate it well because they've thought it through. So one way to get around rambling interview questions is to, in the prep stage, yes, go through common interview questions and brainstorm ideas and points that you'd maybe try and get across, so you have a rough idea of what you can talk about. Second thing is, during the interview, before you answer the question, think, clear your head, and make sure you are directly answering the question with what you're about to say. And do take a minute if you need to, or 10 seconds or 20, before you answer those questions, so that you're articulating it well, and you're hitting your succinct points. And of course, on reflection, even for myself, who'd done interviews before, I'd say practice, 100% practice in the prep stage, because when you practice, you realize what phrases work for you, how your interview type is, and your answers. Yeah, don't worry, another aspiring medic. I'm not saying you're gonna rehearse answers. I'm just saying, it's a very fine line, even if you don't try to rehearse it. But yeah, hopefully I've not gone round too much. All right, that's good advice. No worries at all. That's fine. I'm glad I helped. Sorry, it wasn't for you. It's just for everyone in general. That's just, yeah, something to say. Okay, Dr. Atalophobia. asked the question as well. That's fine. Let me have a look. If you have questions, add it to the question bar, and if not that, you can add it to the comments as well. Got a few coming in. All right, Dr. Atalophobia, your next question is about how important is your UCAT and BMAT score, and when should you take them? So BMAT has I think this year it was moved to just October. For the last few years, you've had an option to do it in either early September or end of October. I think the statistics were like 80% of students did it end of October, 20% did it in start of September. I don't know from which year that was, but I think I'd recommend doing the BMAT end of October and doing your UCAT when you think you will have a good period of time before it to revise well for it. Okay, so those are two permeable things. So I'm going to say from my point of view, when I did my UCAT, it was like the first or second week of September. And the reason why I did it then is because I knew that I would have 4 weeks of summer holidays where I'd revise for the UCAT, and that hopefully should be enough for me. And then and the first week of September is when school kind of started, but I know that school waffles along in the first 1 to 2 weeks with like introductory stuff. So I thought that'd be best for me to do it at the first week of September. But bear in mind, you guys don't. So back in my time, I had AS exams, which were like start of July, end of June. I had summer schools, I had work experiences to do. So that's why I didn't do in August. But I do know loads of people that try and do their UCATs in August because it gives them a good amount of time in the summer holidays, and then afterwards they can do some work experiences, start on their personal statement. So just think of it like a timeline where you're going to fit in your work experiences, your schoolwork. Your schoolwork takes a back seat during UCAT time, no matter what you're doing. And in terms of like, what else was it? Sorry, personal statement work. So like, I think a lot of people end up doing their UCAT in September, like mid to late September, just to buy themselves more time. But I think it does get tricky because personal statement overlaps with that. So I think you can definitely handle it. Loads of people have still done well in UCAT and done personal statements that are good going into med schools with it, but just bear that in mind. For the BMAT, how important is your UCAT and BMAT score? All right, fine. And for your BMAT, I'd say if you do your BMAT in September, you'd probably have to do your UCAT a month before. So that's quite early on in the year. And so I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. You can't, I'll be honest with you, from my past experiences with mentees, you can't do UCAT and BMAT prep at the same time. You do get confused with the types of questions, and sometimes the similar technique is very different. You need to focus on them. So make sure UCAT and BMAT don't overlap at all, especially not the revision. So that's why I'd recommend doing it in October. Of course, you don't know your score, so you're a bit confused about where you can apply to. But like, unless you get a really bad score, like you're not going to be out of the running for a lot of the BMAT unis, obviously apart from Oxford and maybe Cambridge, maybe more UCL. Imperial like have a cutoff which is just below average, but you don't even know what your average is for the year sometimes. So sometimes getting the grade early on doesn't really make a difference as well. Like for example, imagine you got a middle grade, like came 5th decile in your BMAT range, like you might still take the gamble and apply to like UCL and Imperial, because you know that'll make the cutoff for Imperial, and UCL, they look at other things in your application. For example, I know there's other universities that do BMAT as well, so but I just can't remember them off the top of my head. So you have to play the game there. So the question is, how important is your UCAT and BMAT score, and when should you take them? How important is your UCAT and BMAT score? It is very important, I'll be honest with you. A lot of mentees that I've had previously have come unstuck because their UCAT and BMAT haven't been that good, and that's led to them taking maybe gap years. But at the same time, it depends purely on the university you apply to. So some universities who take UCAT on board literally rank you from 1 to like 5,000 in terms of applications by your UCAT score only, as long as you've got your minimum threshold grade. And then from that, they start the interview process, and then they get interviews in, and then they sometimes have like an obligatory cutoff, or they don't. So like, for example, there's a few London UCAT universities that do that. But go on their websites and have a look how important and how much stress they put on it. Whilst, for example, I knew when I applied to Nottingham, I didn't apply, but if I applied to Nottingham, I knew that they'd multiply my UCAT grade by my GC grade, and then they would rank me with the rest of the applicants. So then my UCAT wasn't as emphasized because obviously it was diluted by my GCSE grades. Whilst like for BMAT, UCL, for example, don't tell you how much weighting a BMAT has. And I know people with below average BMATs, highest BMATs, mid BMATs who have gotten in, and it's other parts of the application process that has helped them or hindered them or whatnot. And they're just not very transparent about that. So I can't tell you that, but it's good to ask people in those unis who have applied and go on the websites and like find out for yourself. Dr. Aslaphobia, I hope that has answered your question about how important is your UCAT and BMAT score and when should you take them. If it hasn't, please follow up. Cool. Question I have is, again, from Dr. Aslaphobia, is an intercalated year useful? So I'd say an intercalated year. Okay, so does anyone know what an intercalated year is, or intercalated BSc, intercalated degree? If you do know them, in the comments down below. Is anyone thinking of doing one even before they've gotten into med school? Because slightly, I was thinking of doing one before I got into med school. Just seemed really interesting. So as you guys are commenting, I say yes, an intercalated degree is useful. That's why loads of people. So I think like statistics officially are like 50% of all medical students do an intercalated BSc or something like that. Maybe up to like 60, 70, 80% in some years. It's useful to take a year out of medicine for a lot of people and focus on a niche specialty, whether that be scientific research. Yes, medics who, yep, that's a good. So you take on a research project in between your degree. So it's like a research project basically a year that you do a different degree than medicine. When you take a year out and do another degree for a year, example, neuroscience is the one. Yes, that's exactly it. Well done. That whatever Mish said, that's the answer to your question for what an intercalated degree is. So I did one in global health and I stayed at UCL for that, and because it's part of my obligatory 6 years. So, and it was really useful because it made me think on a different level when it came to problems, when it came to medicine. I was looking at a macro level point of view when it came to global health at population size rather than individual medical patients, and that was quite refreshing and added a lot to my CV, my personality, my academic work, the organizations that I'm part of, the extracurriculars that I got involved in. So for example, whilst doing my global health degree, I got involved in a charity that I'm part of called MA, which is the global health charity that works in rural villages in Bangladesh. And the reason why I got involved is because I had an interest in global health, as shown by my BSc in global health, and read a lot about it, and it was really refreshing. Useful. So it's useful to develop other aspects. A lot of the reason why people do it is because it adds to your points to when you apply for F1 and F2 doctor jobs at the end of medical school. So that does help, adds a good few points, and that's why a lot of people do it as well. So you can get up to 5 points. But again, that point system is very complicated. Maybe watch a YouTube video on it, or search it up, or ask me about it at some point later on. Cool. So yes, an intercalated degree is useful to develop yourself academically, your CV and portfolio, to develop your personality, other skills, other traits, gives you other achievements, diversifies you as a medical student and makes you kind of unique to others, helps you find an area of specialist interest or makes you realize that you're not interested in it, and it adds extra points to your kind of medical school application for when you apply for F1 and F2 as well. But it opens so many doors, and obviously it's getting a degree from an institution. More than anything else, I loved my graduation day. Like all my friends when I was at school were like, "Oh my God, you're doing medicine? That's like 6 or 7 years or something long like that." They are adding years to it. But then obviously I graduated at the end of 3 years because I did my intercalated degree, and a lot of them are taking gap years or doing masters and intercalated stuff. They're like, okay, so like it wasn't as long. Obviously the degree is still long, but it's really nice to be at the halfway point or like near or thereabouts and kind of take a degree. If you guys have any other questions about intercalated BScs or degrees, please drop them below. I mentioned in my UCL interview that I was looking at UCL's global health intercalated degree because I really liked humanities and I knew that I had a lot to do with it. And hey ho, 2 years later, 3 years later, I got my IBSc in global health. So dreams do come true. All right, okay. So hopefully I've answered that question. I'm trying to get used to these cards. They're a bit tricky, so I'm getting to them. All right, so next question I have is from Faiza. Okay, let's have a look. Faiza, I have no traditional extracurriculars, but I'm really interested in writing, poetry, cooking, and I enjoy makeup artistry too. You can just put that all in your personal statement right now. Put it in your extracurricular activity paragraph right now. That is brilliant. That's really cool stuff. That just makes you interesting. Cooking, and I enjoy makeup. Also, I'm trying to, sorry, let me just try and access the rest of your card because it doesn't let me for some reason. Okay, Pfizer, I didn't, after finding out about your non-traditional extracurriculars that are actually really good extracurriculars, what did you write about also something, something, dot, dot, dot? The card didn't come through, so if you just comment that below or send another quest card on it, question card on it, that would be nice. And I can hopefully answer that for you. Or if it was just a comment, no worries. Any interview tips specific for UCL? That's a very good question. I don't know if your name is Maish or Mish, so maybe just let me know below. And the overthinking medic, would you say intercalation is necessary? That's a good question. And when you take a year out and degree, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So Mish/Maish, I'll come back to your question in just a second. Would you say your intercalation is necessary? No, it's not a necessity, is what I'd say. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. It's more that when you do enter the degree, you'll realize if you need to, or Maisha, nice. All right, cool. Hi, Maisha. So I'd say, would you say intercalation is necessary? Intercalation is not necessary. It's only if you want to do it, unless you go to the 4 universities that make you do it. And 1 year of your life between 18 to 25 is not that deep compared to however many years you're going to be studying and doing work and until you retire and live. So I'd say do it if you get the chance and have the facility to. PS, intercalated year was literally the best year of my university life. It was amazing. So I would not say no to it. Okay, so Masha, I'm gonna answer your question. Oh, I've got more questions from the Overthinking Medic. You've got some really good questions here as well. Brilliant. All right, so sorry, what have I done? All right, guys, I hope I'm being useful. Keep the questions coming in. I have until 7 o'clock, and if I have been useful, please do send feedback below, but also share this with your friends, people that you know are applying to med school, because we just want to help as many people as we can try and get in and ease your worries with medical school. Because we've been through it ourselves, and I've also been through 5 to 6 years of med school, so I can tell you the stuff from the other side as well. So the question was from Maisha. Any interview tips specific for UCL? So I'm on the UCL interview panel, so I obviously can't say what type of questions we have or anything like that, but I can tell you what we look at for applicants because it's already accessible on our website. And on the UCL Medical School website, it tells you what they're looking for from a great doctor. They literally bullet point what they're looking for, and those bullet points that they have on the UCL Medical School website, they literally use as their mark scheme when we mark you, when we ask you questions. So for example, do you have good intellectual ability, meaning can you think about for and against topics, can you critically think things through, can you debate positions, can you think of other perspectives and opinions, are you a good communicator, do you have good rapport communication skills that you can apply to patient scenarios later on, can you work within a team, how are you as an individual, are you resilient, are you someone that is going to be affected by pressure, are you someone that's been interested in medicine and has shown your interest in medicine evidenced by your work experience and your interests and the things that you read, evidenced by your reflection from your answers. Those are the things they're looking for, and that's very generic, I know, but this is exactly what they're looking for, especially when it comes to UCL. They are not looking, so by the time you have an interview, specifically at UCL, probably in most other medical schools as well, we already know you're clever enough. We know academically you're super smart. You're gonna get we want you here, and that's why we've given you the interview. So seize that opportunity in the interview and show them your personality. That's what we want to come across. We want you to come across as someone who will be a good doctor who will help people. So be genuine in your interview, answer honestly, and be prepared for it. But it's a very nice interview compared to most interviews in medical schools. And it's more of a conversation, and treat it like a conversation and a debate. Okay, Maisha, those are my interview tips specific for UCL. Not that specific, more general, but as the reason being is because we all look at the same criteria when we end up getting people into medical school, because you all end up as doctors anyway. So that hopefully has helped. I'm sure more people will ask me that type of question. So stay tuned in future Medmentor sessions. We're here live on Saturdays at 6 to 7 p.m. on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Medmentor. And so please join us if you have further questions, and if I don't get to yours today. Okay, so another aspiring medic, you have asked me the question of, what were your concerns before starting medical school? So my concerns before, okay, let me think this one through. It's like an interview here. It's so funny. Let me set my main concerns before starting medical school. Okay, so before I got my offer to med school, obviously I was worried, am I going to get into medical school? Like, that was my main worry. After that, when I think you don't really have concerns before starting med school, because you're just elated that you've gotten in, and because you only find out like end of August, and by the time you're in, it's like mid-September, so you have like 3 weeks to process. First 1 week is just celebrating you going. Second week is just like, oh my god, I need to move in, or like I need to prepare to uni. So like, yeah, that was my concern. Like, how do I prepare myself for university? What does university mean? It's not like the US, like US movies, like where university is just a DOS and all you're doing is partying and there's no work to do. You've got to prepare for it. But like, don't like, yeah. So then, but then my focus was like, it's first year of university. I have 5 or 6 years in this degree, right? So I'm going to enjoy myself. So my concerns were like, so I moved out for my first year of university, and I was like, okay, so now what do I need to do to live by myself? So I learned how to like cook thanks to my mom, like basic things, watched like loads of videos on that. I did some shopping because I needed to move in, like real practical things. Okay, the main things were like, get involved in like the Facebook group chats that they have for freshers, first years that are in medical school in that specific university. Got involved in those, got added to WhatsApp chat, said hello to all my future like medical school student friends, made friends with people from WhatsApp and Facebook before I went in, and then obviously met them when I got to university and stuff, and I'm still really good friends with loads of them. So it was, my main concerns were more like, oh, how am I going to utilize my time best to like socialize, to enjoy myself? Because that's what first year, and especially the first few weeks to months, are really about. Is rather than like study, which you're going to have plenty of time to do and need to do, you need to kind of enjoy the fact that you've made it to medical school, you've got into university. So less concerns, more just excitement, and meeting new people. So another aspiring medic, hopefully you feel my excitement, and even after 6 years, med school's been pretty cool and it's lived up to my expectations. But there's a lot more work to it, but that's for later on you to worry about. Later on, you can worry about that. Okay, another aspiring medic. Hopefully that's answered your question. All right, next questions I've got is, let me see, another aspiring medic. Oh, the overthinking medic asked me, what would you say intercalation is necessary? All right, I've already answered that question. That's fine. The other question that the overthinking medic has asked me is, are you currently considering any specialties? Yes, I am currently considering specialties. So I entered medical school thinking that, oh my god, I can't wait to be like a doctor in a hospital and like could be a cardiothoracic surgeon. Like my dad was always like, oh, tell people you're like you want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, because then people will be like, whoa, this like 12-year-old really wants to do loads of cool stuff. But it's true. I like the heart. I like cardiology. I'm interested in it. But I think in medical school, you get a real taste of how specialties are when it comes to doctors and how they live their life, and how they live their work life as well, and their balance between it, what they're interested in, what you're interested in terms of science and kind of the field in general. And to me, I realized I was very much a generalist. I didn't love one specialty so much more than another. And for me, seeing all my going through placement, which you have in medical school, you go through loads of different placements and have loads of exposure, talk to loads of doctors in those placements, consultants to F1s. And for me, right now, I'm thinking that I want to do GP because it's a very generalist job. It's a very good variety of cases that come through your door. very time pressured, which is almost it's frustrating but also exhilarating, which makes you think on your feet, and you're constantly problem solving when someone comes through the door. Like, for example, someone can come through with back pain. 99% of the time it could be something very relaxed, just muscle pain. 1% of the time it could be or 5% of the time it could be like a prolapse disc. 1% of the time it could be a result of a cancer that you as a GP have to identify and refer on straight away. Like, it's a lot of problem solving. That's why I really like GP. But you get the same in medicine. Surgery is a lot more practical. But it didn't resonate with me that much. Also, it's a very tough career to kind of go through, and I don't think I was passionate enough for it. Medicine in hospitals is a different ballgame. I love being in a hospital sometimes. 12 hours can sometimes go like that, especially if you're busy doing things. But I think then I started thinking more about work-life balance, and with GP, it gives you an opportunity to do other things. So, for example, I do loads of extracurricular work with like charities. I have my own startup. I do things like this with Medmentor, quite sociable. So I want to have a variety in my day. So I want to do portfolio GP where I can do like 1 day a week in a specialty in medicine, 3 days maybe with my own GP, and another day doing my charity work, or like working on business or something like that. But like yeah, that's the GP lifestyle that I kind of want. Does anyone want to be a GP here? I don't know if that's a question that I don't know. What do you guys think of GPs? Hopefully you guys don't slate them. At the start of medical school, I thought GPs did nothing because my own GP wasn't that great. Oops. But they're really good. So don't ever diss GPs is what I'd say. So the next question is, another aspiring medic has another question, and Dr. Atelophobia. So I'll go for Dr. Atelophobia first. Thanks for answering. Oh, thanks so much. I'm considering to cause of the work-life balance. Definitely don't ever work-life balance. Your life means something. Don't ever think that it doesn't. So do something that makes you happy, not something that's just competitive for the sake of doing it. Because sometimes you look back and be like, oh God, what's happened to my life? Where's it gone? Also, money is a dirty word in like everything for some reason, especially in medicine. Do look at the monetary wage structures as well and see if that's important to you. Maybe not important to you if you're 16, but if you're at my age, you're like 23, 24, you're going to be like, okay, I need some money at some point as well. So think about that. Thank you everyone for joining. Just answering your questions on Medmentor's live clinic. Asul Jishi, hi, Asul, you're right. So Dr. Atelophobia, is it really hard to find volunteering right now? What would you recommend? Oh, it is really hard to find volunteering right now. What would you recommend? Okay, that's a good question. I'd say look at Age UK. Go to Age UK's website. They have loads of opportunities to try and get involved online through like talking to people who want to basically just have conversations because they feel lonely. They're generally elderly people that either live by themselves or in like care facilities. And obviously right now their relatives are going to find it hard or can't at all go see them, especially being in isolation or in lockdown. So befriending schemes are very interesting, whether that be through HUK or other websites. And that'd be really good for you to kind of get done. I'd say if you get any opportunities to volunteer through medical through your school. So I worked with an autistic youth club. Every 2 weeks I volunteered at the youth club, and it was really interesting. I gained a lot from it. Volunteering at charity shops, volunteering like I have a friend of mine that used to go on weekend trips with kids who had who just need kids who are carers, some kids who had special needs or like disabilities, and they found it really rewarding, and it was a great time to just like go on a trip on a weekend with these kids and just kind of enjoy yourself with them and facilitate that fun for them as well. There's a few websites out there. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Just Google search stuff. It's like caring for young carers and like stuff like that, like respite care home, things like that. Care home work or hospice work. You can volunteer in like schools. You can volunteer like anywhere, charity. Just look at volunteering in homeless food drives would be really good as well. Outside of maybe lockdown, that is really rewarding. That's something that I got involved in when I got into university, which was really something I didn't know happened, especially in like big city areas with homeless populations. Okay, so that was Dr. Atelophobia's question on how to find volunteering. What would you recommend? I'm considering to. Guys, if you have any questions, drop them either in the comments or the question cards. I have 9 more minutes, so I'm going to quick fire through any other questions that you guys come up with. I know there's a few questions that I haven't addressed yet. So, as another aspiring medic, your next question is, are there any added benefits to intercalating externally versus internally? So, the only benefit to intercalating externally is if you want that name of whichever university added to your CV and that experience to get out of the university you're already in, to meet more different people, see how life is in another university. Maybe you're just curious. Maybe it works more with your specialty. Maybe like a neuroscience BSc in a specific university is seen better than somewhere else. Like, feel free to have a look. Or if you're looking for masters and you're not able to get that in the university you're in already, or if the university you're in right now, this is the most common thing, the university that you're in right now might not offer the subject that you're looking for, that you're interested in. And for example, a quite good example is the Imperial that do a management BSc, that most medical schools in the country, I doubt any, do management. Not medical schools or universities do management as an intercalated BSc or like offer it, but Imperial do, so that's why they get loads of applicants for the Imperial BSc in management. So that's their benefits. Okay, so next question from Amru. If a university asks you why this uni can talk about how we like the range of intercalated, if a university asks you why this uni, can we talk about how we like the range of intercalated degrees that they offer? Yes, Amru, you can, because one of that'd be not the main reason though. I'd say use that as a reason on top of other reasons that you can find for how good that university is. So for myself, I love the BSc in Global Health, and I was like, I really want to do the BSc in Global Health if I get into UCL, and hey, I did it. But also, now UCL have like 40-something intercalated BScs, and if you talk about the fact that they have a huge range, they'll be like, oh, good, someone's recognized that they've been through the core syllabuses and like had a look, and maybe you can choose like maybe 1 or 2 that you're maybe looking at or you're interested in maybe potentially in the future. So yes, you can talk about the range of intercalated degrees and pick 1 or 2 out that you're maybe interested in, is what I'd say. Amru, very good question. Another medic, you're welcome. Thank you guys for being so kind, and keep your questions coming. I've got 6 more minutes, so I'm going to answer as many as I can. And comments and everything. Cool. Dr. Afterophobia, I fundraise for Amnesty International. Does that count as volunteering? Yes, it does. Well done. That's amazing. Amnesty International are a really good and important organization, so keep at that work. That counts as volunteering because you're spending your time doing work for them. So you just have to say in your personal statement, I volunteer for Amnesty International as a and work in fundraising or as a fundraising officer or something. Med_things. Your question is, I'm 16. Is it possible for me to find volunteering in a hospital? That is very, very, very tricky. I'd say no, because even 17-year-old, okay, I'm not going to say no because there might be caveats to it, but I'd say it's very difficult to find that just because hospital environments are generally for people who are 18 plus because of like insurance issues and things like that. I think people even at 17 find it difficult to find anything in a hospital because they're under 18. So volunteering in a hospital isn't a normal thing anyway to find, although I think like places like King's College or something, like there's a few hospitals around that do volunteering programs. Maybe you can volunteer like as part of charities within a hospital. So like, for example, Royal Free Hospital in North London, not saying that you need to go to that one, but like, for example, they have their own charity called Royal Free Hospital Charity, and they have volunteers in the hospital just fundraising for them, and you could almost say that you volunteered at Royal Free Hospital, like whatever. So like there's loads of charities that will volunteer in hospitals, you can do that, but it doesn't have to be in a hospital is what I'm trying to get across, because you're not gonna learn much. You might learn stuff in your volunteering role, but it just depends what it is. So I'd say go for it if you can find a way in, but in my experience doesn't mean that there isn't an opportunity there. Many things. Hey, Dr. Acidophobia, no worries at all. I'm happy to answer all your questions. I'm going to be here hopefully every week on Medmentor Live at 6 o'clock. So feel free to come back and keep me updated with how everything's going, and any other questions you have from week to week. Please do share with your friends as well if we've been helpful, so we can get more people involved and we'll have more of a Medmentor community. Check out our website as well. our Instagram page. It'd be really nice. Guys, so I've got like 4 more minutes left. If you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them. So, Dr. Aclophobia, is it useful to do the hospital volunteering where you just welcome patients? Yes, that's fine. I mean, everything's useful to an extent. I think you can only find out how useful it is by trying it out maybe for a week or two and seeing if you're learning anything from it and if you think that's good. But there's loads of takeaways that you just don't realize at the time. So I'd say yes, that's true. You can volunteer in hospitals just to say hello to people when in reception or an area like that. Again, as I said, doesn't have to be just reception. Hospital, sorry, it can be anywhere. As long as you kind of link it back to medicine. Volunteering also, it's a good way to, it's about, with volunteering, it's a lot about, sorry about that. With volunteering, it's, yes, it does feel like a tick box a lot, but from my own experience, when I did my volunteering, I learned loads about the people that I volunteered with and myself, and I realized that, well, volunteering, the purpose of volunteering is to help people, and hopefully you get that opportunity in your roles, because I managed to when I got my volunteering roles, and it was really, honestly, there were overwhelming feelings when I was like, yeah, I helped like a student or someone who in my volunteering role to overcome this issue, and it really came out in interview because obviously it came from the heart kind of, and I really found it I find it really insightful, and it was one of the reasons why I was like, yeah, like in the future I want to do medicine because I want to help people, and because I'm helping people by just giving lunches out in a hospice and putting smiles on their faces, so let alone if I can help them and treat their remedies as a doctor. Another aspiring medic, thank you so much for your feedback. We really appreciate it. We're doing it for people like you, so keep using the website as much as you like, and anything that you want to see, drop us messages and we'll see what we can do. Cool. I think the questions have dried up. Is it useful to hospital? Fine. Have I missed anyone's questions? If I've missed anyone's questions, please drop them on the comments right now below. And I think last 2 questions. Let me just check. Okay, cool. I've got a minute and I'm just gonna, so that's it. Cool. Guys, I'll be back next week at 6 p.m. On Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube Live, on Medmentor Live. We have Medmentor weekly clinics. This was a Q&A session with me, Taf, final year medical student, and we'll be continuing this every week. So please come to us with your questions, no matter how big or small, and no matter how waffly or not. I try my best to answer them and be useful to you. If you really like Medmentor, the work that we're doing, please do like our pages and subscribe to our newsletters and to our YouTube channel, and share with all your friends that you know applying to medical school, because we want to help as many people get into medical as much as possible. Amru, thank you so much. See you next week. R1 Beans, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Another aspiring medic, thank you for all your questions and being interactive. Bodybound Studio, thank you for your thumbs up. Med Things, thank you for your questions. Dr. Aclophobia, thank you. Thank you everyone who's joined and like come in and come out. The Overthinking Medic, some really good questions. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for your support. Maisha, good luck with everything. And I'll see you guys all next week, hopefully. Our hand gestures can considered unprofessional during interviews. Amru, last question that you put in, I'd say they are not considered unprofessional. Just don't do too much of it, but we can talk about that next week. Okay, so we'll talk more about interviews, personal statements, whatever you like next week. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Medmentor's weekly clinic. See you guys next week. Bye.